like Shakespeare, master wordsmith, like Shakespeare.
And it came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth, a city of the powers that be are ordained. And when the centurion which stood before him saw that he so cried, and gave up the ghost, "Ye are the salt of the earth," then they, having no law, are a law unto themselves.
It's remarkably influential. His language persists into our world today.
Tyndale's translation was revolutionary in other ways as well. By starting again from the original Greek and Hebrew, he transcribed a version of Christianity very different from that of the Catholic Church. Wycliffe and Luther, he believed the Church had willfully obscured God's true meaning.
And though I bestowed all my goods to feed the poor, and though I gave my body even that I burned, and yet had no love, it profiteth me nothing.
Tyndale carefully chose words that illustrated the ancient languages. Instead of priest, he used presbyter, or elder, to dilute the church's sacred power. Instead of charity, which implied you could buy your way into heaven with good deeds, he chose love.
Now abideth faith, hope, and love, even these three. But the chief of these is...
And in Tyndale's translation, the mighty hierarchy of the church became a simple congregation.
And I say also unto that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my congregation, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.
Change these in any way was heresy, because you were changing what the church said. The church could do no wrong.
By August of 1525, Tyndale was ready to publish, and he had his New Testament, a prologue, and some notes on the text. He found a printer in Cologne, but on the night they were to begin, disaster struck. The printer was raided. Someone had tipped off the church authorities. Tyndale the heretic got away, but lost part of his text during his escape. Undaunted, he began again, and in 1526, his new was finally printed. Only a few inches tall, even its size was subversive.
Church Bibles are great big things, but a Tyndale New Testament can be a very small book indeed. It was, of course, in its inception seen as a dangerous book. That's why it's small, so you can sneak it into places. But it also means that it fits in the hand, and that which fits in the hand becomes a part of somebody's everyday life.
Within weeks of its printing, the first copies of Tyndale's New Testament began making their way into England, where they were sold on the black market. The illegal book was a hit. The Catholic government's reaction was swift and fierce. Tyndale's New Testament was publicly burned. The flames would soon spread to the readers as well.
It saith here in the letter to the Romans, I am not ashamed.
Preachers distributing and reading the text to groups of passers-by were brutally arrested. Their determination bore witness to the potency of Tyndale's words. Tyndale's followers were burned at the stake, and the violence of the English government's prosecution kept him in exile. But Europe was not much safer. The entire continent was sliding into a vicious period of religious conflict between the Catholics and the would-be reformers. Tyndale remained hidden during this time, but he continued his translations, and eventually his books themselves revealed where he was lurking. He had gone secretly to Antwerp, Belgium, where even his printer worked undercover.
He presented himself not as Martinus Keizer or Merten de Keizer or Martin l'Empereur, which was his real name, but he also called himself Balthazar Bekend, Balthazar you know who, Adam Anonymous, Adam you don't know who, and various other names.
For an illegal printer and an English heretic on the run, Antwerp was a good place to be. Just across the North Sea from England, it was one of the largest ports in Europe and had a sophisticated English merchant community. It was also a fiercely independent city. Protestants were safe there as long as they kept under the church's radar.